This one's going to sting a little, but it has to be said. If you don't understand teaching, what it feels like, what it demands, what it can break open in you, what it can break down in you, you probably shouldn't be running a school. That being said, that doesn't mean that you have to be the best teacher in the building to be the school owner or the school leader. It doesn't mean you even need to have decades of classroom experience. I'm not saying that, but if you can't speak the language of your teachers, of pedagogy, of classroom dynamics or learner experience beyond a few buzzwords that you've picked up from scrolling on the internet, you're not leading a school, you're managing a brand. And schools don't thrive on branding, they thrive on credibility.
Hey there, it's Kelly, and if you're here for miracle fixes, shiny classroom hacks, or whatever today's buzzword is trending, yeah, not gonna happen. What you will get is real talk about English teaching, teacher training, and the chaos we actually deal with in ELT. So let's get into it.
So, in my work with schools, I'm not going to say around the world, but in several different continents, I can say, I've seen two types of leadership. One that's rooted in pedagogical empathy and understanding, and the kind that's built on optics and enrollment numbers. And when leaders can't connect to how should I say this? Leaders can't connect their decisions, what they want to do, to actually what is happening in the classroom. There's a gap between the management, admin management, and the teaching staff. And it just gets wider and wider and wider. Every decision that's made without any consideration for what's happening in the classroom, which is actually the most important thing. So, teachers feel it instantly. And the moment the director or owner or whatever you want to label you want to throw on yourself gives some feedback without understanding the classroom context, they launch a new initiative with no awareness of timing or anything like that, or even they start making policy decisions for the sake of appearance only rather than outcomes in the classroom. So that's kind of where we're going today. And what happens when leaders really don't understand teaching? Well, there's a big credibility gap, right? Because you're just going to get eye rolling. So if you've ever taught, someone gets it. Like they understand, it's relatable. Like if you've ever taught in a classroom in front of any kind of student, it's just like, yeah, okay, we can operate kind of on the same wavelength. And when they don't, you can tell by the feedback that they give, by the priorities that they set, the way that they talk about students, the way that they talk about the school, the lines of communication. It's just so obvious. And when the understanding isn't there, the internal credibility gap it's blatant, obvious, and it just grows, to be honest. So if you have a credibility gap, then the trust within the team erodes because the teachers are not going to trust that you're making decisions with their interests in mind or the students' interests in mind. And it's eventually your turnover starts hiking up. You've got teachers leaving because they don't believe in whatever you sold them in the beginning. They're leaving. And because teachers honestly don't stay where they feel misunderstood and undervalued. That's it. Teachers will stay where they feel that they're valued and that they can voice opinions and things might not change immediately, things might not change at all, but at least that there's some sort of understanding amongst the team. So there's this burden that we have that nothing's translating. So here's what also happens. Teachers who do understand teaching spend their time translating. They're constantly explaining why things won't work, offering alternatives, and then they get ignored. And it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating for teachers. I just completely empathize with them. And they're compensating. They end up compensating for leadership decisions that were never grounded in classroom reality. Because let's be honest here, if it's a school, your business is education. That's what it is. So when it comes down to it, if something's not happening in the classroom, like I don't know what the expectations are of leadership that don't take consideration anything that's going on in the classroom. It's exhausting. Over time, it just creates a culture where teaching, it just feels the teachers, it's frustrating to be teaching in that environment. And then the team feels like they have to protect their work from the very people who should be appreciating it, like defend themselves, arm themselves with some sort of evidence. So leadership in itself, I think, has its own discipline. It's outside of pedagogy and all that good stuff, but it does need to have some pedagogical roots. So I want to be very clear here. School, I have, again, referring always to my notes so I don't get off track too much. School leadership is its own discipline, and it's not just an extension of teaching. But strong leadership in education is rooted in pedagogical empathy. I've said this once, I'm going to say it again. You don't have to. Oh, hang on. Sorry, there was a delivery and I knew my dog was going to bark. So anyways, where was I? So you don't have to be like the superstar teacher to be in a leadership position in admin and management or anything like that. But you do have to have an understanding of what the job actually is in the classroom, not just in theory, but in practice. So humility is quite a strength, I think, for pedagogical leaders, because if you don't have the background yet, that's fine. And any management, I said pedagogical leaders, but like any management position, they need to understand what it feels like to be it's just a very different sensation, I think. So the best leaders I've seen are the ones who don't know everything, but they're the ones that surround themselves with people who do know. And then they actually listen to them. They don't listen to respond, they listen to absorb. And they listen to them like the school's future depends on it, because it actually does. Is if your teacher, if you have teachers abandoning your school left and right, the first thing I would look at is how your school is structured and who the leadership is and how they treat the teachers. How they teach, not just the teachers, but how they treat that teaching process, that dynamic, the classroom, how they speak about students, how they speak about, the whole dynamic that's going on. Because there are business schools, or skills, I should say, business skills, and there is pedagogical authority. And if your background is in business, listen, my background is in business. I didn't start in education. I started in business. Lord knows that I took a turn, and it was a very unexpected turn into education, which ended up working out for me. But if your background's in business, it's a huge plus. It's an asset, I think, because you can use it to stabilize the finances of the school. You can streamline some of the operations, and you can build partnerships. That's great. I don't think that it's 100% necessary, but I do think that it's like it's a differential. It can be a differential for school owners. But don't assume that any of those skills automatically make you qualified to dictate what's happening in the pedagogical department or drive teacher culture. You got to stay in your lane, and you have to understand what you have and what you don't have. And this is what a lot of people can't really do. So you need to hire smart. Ask better questions, and defer to the people who've done the work. And when it comes to teaching practice, never assume that because you've learned a language or you're a language user that you know how to teach one. You don't. let me say that again, okay? And this is something that if you're a native speaker or if you're a speaker of another language, just because you learned a language and you're a language user, that does not translate into automatically you are a language teacher. No. Teaching is its own profession. And I know that sometimes people think that I went off and I did an exchange program and now I'm just going to teach a couple classes on the side until I figure out what my career. Nope. Those types of people make the whole language education community look bad and very frustrated, to be honest. So, in my humble opinion, what good leadership looks like, again, this is all anecdotally speaking from all the experiences that I've had working with leadership and working with different types of people. And so here's what I can tell you from the bad to the good. So, in my opinion, you need to listen before you decide anything. When I do like consulting work and I'm working with several institutions right now, I've seen schools turn around, not because of a change in ownership, but it was because someone in leadership finally got humble enough to admit that they did not know. They didn't know. And they brought in the teaching voices into the decision-making process, and that actually acted on some of the input that the teachers brought to them that were complaints from students or feelings that they were getting about disengagement, things like that. Your teachers have very, very valuable insights into what the students actually want. And then you have to have someone who knows kind of what they're doing to say, well, this is what they want, but this is what they need. Let's find a happy medium so that they're feeling engaged and satisfied with their courses and they see progress. Because at the end of the day, this is not fun, happy time. We need to have students that meet objectives, meaning they need to learn the language. They need to become proficient users of the language. Your teachers are the ones that deal with the students day in and day out. Who better to help you make decisions about implementing new things in the school than having your teacher's input? But hey, who am I to say these things? Anyways, the other thing that I think is very helpful with good leadership is that there's a shared responsibility. So when leadership decisions are made with both business and pedagogical expertise in the room, one, the teachers feel supported. Two, the learners actually get better outcomes because they're thinking about multiple perspectives of a certain situation. And the school builds a reputation that's more than just marketing, because there's a lot of schools nowadays, there's a lot of freelancers and all of that good stuff nowadays that they just want to cling on to celebrities or pay this marketing agency to have, the best marketing campaign, but they can't back it up. Or you pitch something and you say something, and then what happens in the classroom really isn't that. So everything has to be aligned from the business side to the pedagogical side. And it's very rare that you have someone that can look at both sides and say, well, I've got expertise in all of these aspects. But here is a little moment of reflection for you. So if you're leading a school, if you own a school, if you lead a school, if you have that fancy little title that everybody seems to look for, and wondering why your teaching team isn't fully bought into what you're preaching in your marketing campaigns, this might be your moment to say, hey, this isn't personal, but it is your responsibility to close the gap between your decisions and their realities. That is all on you. And you don't have to teach to lead a school. You don't have to be a teacher, but you do have to lead with the understanding of what teaching entails, all of the stuff that goes into it, so that your teachers don't feel like they need to shield their work from you, that they need to constantly defend themselves. So, if you're ready to build a leadership model that truly integrates pedagogy and your decision making, I can help design it if you're interested. But hey, if you could just take these reflection questions and move forward with them in a very productive way, then I'm all for that as well. But in education, credibility isn't a nice to have. It's the foundation that everything else rests on.
That's it for today. If you want more, I've got binge-worthy playlists right here on the channel. You can also grab some resources at kellypenningtonelt.com, Instagram at kellypenningtonelt, and yes, even LinkedIn, where I do my best impression of being professional. Links below. See you in the next one.